Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by WynnBet. I am your co-host, Mike Calabres, joined by my Action Network partner in crime, Mike Iannello, and we are back for the Week 6 Group of 5 deep dive. An exciting opportunity as conference play heats up here for us to get back in the black. Had a rough go of it last week. There was a couple near misses. South Alabama broke my heart. They had some critical kicking meltdowns, extra points and field goals. They ended up losing by 2 as a plus 340. I want to say money line underdog. Our best bets also went 0 for 2, and our round robin went 3 and 2, but that's of no use to anyone throwing around the round robin money. So we need to get back into the groove. And I think it starts with the mojo. We got to start with some feel-good stories, some positivity. One of the teams that has been good to me all season is the UTEP Miners. So we'll go ahead and start with my G5 hero of the week. Bradley Dale Pavito, probably the deepest of all cuts, even here in G5 land, the defensive coordinator for UTEP, a long time, some would say lifer assistant coach in the SEC. He's now been promoted. He is the defensive coordinator of UTEP, and he's got those kids playing a great brand of defense. Top 50 in scoring defense, 21st in total D, 20th in yards per carry, and opponents are only completing 48% of their passes. And when you look at the second half last week against Old Dominion, he was the difference maker, dialing up blitzes, the right kind of coverages. The last 3 drives for Old Dominion with a chance to win it. Interception, 4 and out. Another win for UTEP. Miner Nation loves it. Who do you like as your G5 hero of the week, Mike?
Yeah, I'm going with a bit of a deep cut here too. I'm going with Georgia Southern running back Logan Wright. Georgia Southern, kind of shockingly, I would say, fired Chad Lunsford last week. I believe, is he the only team that's fired their coach so far this year?
Clay Helton, I believe. True. Clayton, yeah, at this point, who remembers his name? He's just another log on the fire of the USC firing squad. So yeah, in G5 land, I believe he's the first.
Years. I forgot about him because he's been fired for 3 years. But I'm going with, Logan Wright, Georgia Southern's running back, fired Chad Lunsford, their first game under interim head coach Kevin Whitley. He runs for 10 carries, 208 yards, and 2 touchdowns. For those of you who are not good at math, that is 20.8 yards per carry. Georgia Southern as a team rushed for 503 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground in a 59-33 win over Arkansas State, Kevin Whitley's first win as a head coach. They absolutely slaughtered Arkansas State behind the back of Logan Wright. So I'm going with him as my hero of the week. And that leads me perfectly into my best bet of this week. I'm going with the Thursday night play, the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, however you say it, minus 20 at Arkansas State. As I just mentioned above, Arkansas State's defense is just horrific. They're allowing 563 yards per game. That is the worst in the entire country. They are allowing 45.6 points per game. Only UMass has been worse. They rank 129th in the country in rushing success rate on defense. And now they pick Coastal Carolina, who is awesome at running the ball. They run that kind of hybrid RPO, not truly a triple option, but kind of a triple option. And Coastal Carolina's offense has just been humming this whole season. They're first in the Sun Belt and 6th in the country in total offense. They're averaging 528 yards per game. They're 12th in rush success, 23rd in pass success. They're just incredibly efficient behind Grayson McCall and that offense. McCall's playing great. He's doing what he needs to do. They have 3 good running backs, Reese White, Shamari Jones, Braden Bennett. All of them are averaging over 7 yards a carry. They have 2 great weapons on the outside in Javon Hiley and Isaiah Likely. Both are all Sun Belt wide receiver and a tight end. And Coastal, we can sit here and say, yes, we know they have no chance of making the playoff, but they don't know that. And they've proven this season that they're willing to run up the score and make statements on bad teams. And that's what Arkansas State's proven to be. And I think Coastal's almost flying. They've almost crossed over that point where they're so good that they're kind of boring. No one watches them. No one talks about them. It's like, oh, ho-hum, Coastal beat UMass by 50. That's what we expect. I see that happening again against Arkansas State, that, they couldn't stop anything. So I think Coastal runs it down their throat as they've been doing all year. They run it up on them late. Give me Coastal at anything under 21.
You mentioned the versatility of the Chants offense, and I agree. If you look, you can go down a rabbit hole on YouTube. They do a really nice job of film study and cut ups. There's a bunch of content creators that really did a nice job of unpacking all the different elements of their offense during the offseason to try to figure out, this postmortem, why they were so good. And the reality is, it reminds me back in the day in Madden and NCAA football, you could select the global playbook and you literally could run any formation and any play. And it seems to be that whenever Coastal Carolina gets in the film room, they find out what's the weakness of the defense and they build the whole game plan around that. I could see Grayson McCall throwing 12 passes in this game and them scoring 55 points. And I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see them just run it down the throat of the Red Wolves, and they have no way, shape, or form can they stop it. So because of that, I think it makes it a lot safer. There's not as much volatility in terms of what they're doing. Sometimes when you're banking on a blowout win for a team that likes to throw it all over the place, you can get some tip passes, some interceptions, but I think it's going to be pretty simple from a game plan perspective. So I like that play out of the gate. For my best bet, going with an over here, over 70.5 between Western Kentucky and UTSA. And we'll start with the pace. And it's pretty simple. Western Kentucky is 40th in plays per game this season. And you saw against Michigan State in the second half, they have no problem speeding things up when they're playing from behind. I think from a game flow perspective, you're going to see that. But who's leading the charge? It's the Roadrunners here. And they're third nationally in plays per game. And when you put the two together, you're looking at close to 160 plays predicted for this particular game. So the plays are only as good as the offenses that are running them. And you have two strengths against two weaknesses. Western Kentucky is the first ranked passing game in the nation. Bailey Zappi has been tremendous. He's approaching 450 passing yards per game. And because of that, you have to look at, is UTSA equipped to slow that down? They're 70th in pass defense. And that first half against Memphis, a game that we had our eyes on because we called for the upset, they fell down 21-0 early. They gave up some deep shots. I think they're going to be in trouble against a Western Kentucky team that has sharpened themselves and sharpened the knife, so to speak, against Indiana, against Michigan State. That Michigan State game, they were throwing it all over the place. It wasn't just Jareth Stearns. They were spreading the love, so to speak. And I think because of that, it's just too difficult for this UTSA team to slow them down. I see Zappi throwing for 400 yards. Now, on the other side, when the Roadrunners do have the ball, Sincere McCormick, only one player in the country has had more carries in the last 3 weeks, and that's Jalen Warren, a former G5 hero, transfer from Utah State, now at Oklahoma State. But McCormick, 94 carries in the last 3 weeks. So they're going to this kid. And Western Kentucky can't stop the run at all. 120th nationally, 216 yards per game. So the two strengths against two weaknesses up and down the field. 70.5 does not scare me away. I'd play this up to 74. What are your thoughts on a shootout in this matchup of Conference USA teams?
Yeah, I definitely like it. I like everything you're saying, and I'll give my thoughts on this game a little later coming up here.
All right. Well, I like that little tease here in the biz. It's why we're pros, making sure to keep people listening, even if you're listening at 1.5 or 2x speed, no judgment there. We're going to go ahead and speed right into our round robin. We're actually going to speed into the G5 parlay underdog version here. So we're going to look for the big payout. We're always, mining for those 5-1, 6-1s. If I have one of my ambitious plays hit, maybe 10-1. I'll get it started here. I love Tulane plus 200 on the money line, hosting Houston. This is a short week, a home dog. I love spots like this. And the last time they played at Yulman, Tulane beat them outright in a high-scoring game. I believe it scored in the upper 60s. When you look at what Tulane has done this year, they've played against two really good offenses in Oklahoma. I mean, you can make the argument Oklahoma has struggled a little bit, but particularly in that game in Norman, they were clicking. They had things working offensively. And then Ole Miss, dropped a nuclear bomb on the green wave from an offensive perspective. Also, you squeak in a game against ECU. ECU has been red hot offensively. So I think Tulane has just been getting hammered by teams that are really competent offensively. And Houston is not that. They're 86th in total offense. They have a mediocre running game. They're in the mid 80s for just about every metric: yards per game, yards per carry. Lots of high percentage throws. But they're only 77th in yards per attempt. So they're trying to build the confidence of Clayton Tune, but he hasn't really been able to accomplish that. Despite the high percentage throws, they're still 105th in interception rate this year. And when you look at their opponents, they played Grambling, they played Navy. These numbers should be a lot better. So as they walk in at 4-1, I think they're a bit of a paper tiger in this spot. And because of that, and Clayton Tune's propensity to turn the ball over, 6 picks in essentially 4 full games, he got knocked out early and was taken out as a precaution against Grambling. I think Michael Pratt and Tulane, they're a live dog in this spot, and I love them on the short week. What are you going to go ahead and pair up here, and then we can talk, final payout for this parlay?
Well, first, I just want to say I love that pick. I was deciding between two, and when you told me you were going with Tulane, that made it easy for me to just take the other one because I love Tulane for everything you said. I've always been a non-believer in Clayton Tune. Turns the ball over too much. You mentioned the picks. I don't know, have the numbers in front of me, but he fumbles the ball a ton. He is so careless with the football. That's what you want for an upset. You want a quarterback that's going to cough it up and throw pick sixes and give you short fields, and Clayton Tune's done that his whole career. For my second one, I'm pairing it with Florida Atlantic plus 175 at UAB. And I know we love UAB. We took UAB cash to Underdog Parlay the other day, a couple weeks ago. So I'm fading them in this spot. FAU is in their second year under Willie Taggart, and they've really just picked up right where they were going under the lane train. And Jim Leavitt's gone from the defensive coordinator, but Mike Stoops stepped in, and the defense doesn't look any different. And that's been their strength the last couple of years. Last year they were top 25 in both passing and rushing success on defense. They were at 13 or top 14 tacklers back. And this year they've been so good against the run, or against the pass. The rush numbers are a little skewed in my opinion because all right, they gave 400 rushing yards to Florida. That was a bad game. And then they played two option teams. So Georgia Southern and Air Force were able to run the ball on them. But their passing offense has been incredible. They're 14th in the country in passing success rate. They held Florida to just 153 yards passing. But the big question mark for FAU, was their offense. They were 112th in the country last year. That's improved significantly. They're up to 22nd in yards per game this year in the country, 34th in yards per play. They rank 13th in rushing success, which they've always kind of been good at, but 31st in pass success is, to me, where that's the biggest sign of improvement. And the reason is they brought in N'Kosi Perry from Miami. And I think oftentimes, I'm guilty of it. We both do it on this show. You see a guy in the Power 5 conferences who stinks, and he drops, like I do with Rocky Lombardi every week. I say Rocky Lombardi stinks. He was bad at Michigan State. But yeah, Perry struggled at Miami, but now, he stepped down a level and he's looked really good. He's thrown 10 touchdowns, 1 interception this year. He's coming off his best game of the season last week. He went 18 for 21 for 329 yards, 3 touchdowns against Florida International. He now has a rushing TD in 3 straight games. To pair that with sophomore running back Johnny Ford, who's having a great year, averaging 6 yards per carry. And this UAB defense, they're still pretty good against the run, but they're not as good against the pass as they were last year. So I think Perry's going to be able to throw against this Blazers defense. And Florida Atlantic has just kind of owned UAB. They've won 5 of the 7 meetings between these two teams. Last time they played was the 2019 Conference USA Championship. FAU thumped them 49-6. I expect, not that much of a blowout, obviously, but I kind of just think FAU is a better team. I think their defenses are both fairly equal, and I like Florida Atlantic's offense more than I like UAB's. So give me FAU at plus 175 to get the upset here.
It's a tasty payout, plus 875 as the parlay, putting the Tulane and FAU plays together. I'm a little bit gun shy just because I backed FAU and their trip to Colorado did not work out against Air Force. But you're the first man through the wall here. I will follow you, and I agree. The passing game has been so spectacular, with the exception of that game, that you think that they'll probably be able to get back on track. Really, if we can do anything to move the mojo in our favor, I think we should just probably throw some shade on N'Kosi Perry, because honestly, it's been a positive podcast this whole year, but we did throw a ton of shade on one guy, and that would be Kenneth Pickett from Pitt. And boy, Kenny has just gone berserk ever since we mentioned that, he probably should relocate to a Mac mailing address and then could be a competent quarterback. Well, he's top 5 in Pro Football Focus and, fantasy metrics and everything else. He's been absolutely on fire. I believe he's saved our producer's college fantasy football team as well, picking him off the trash heap. So yeah, Perry, you're no good. Just whatever it takes to get a chip on your shoulder in this game. Please play angry and, drop a 40-point nugget on UAB for us. All right, we're going to transition now to our G5 High 5 round robin here in week 6. And we got a 5-pack of games. I'll get it started quickly with a team that seemingly got their identity stolen from them. Their mojo was gone. And this happens a decent amount when you see G5 teams traveling for that paycheck. They go up to Happy Valley, this Ball State team, and they got absolutely crushed. And what happened from there, it seems like they were flailing. They ended up benching their quarterback. Their passing game was totally broken. Last week against a very good Army team that entered undefeated. The Ball State Cardinals get it going. Johannes Tyler and their other player, Justin Hall, who had a kick return for a touchdown, they combined for 160 receiving yards. And because of that, it made Drew Plitt much more effective offensively. And I think this is the game to get them back in the mentality of they can be in that top 3 or 4 conversation in the MAC. So to be able to steal them in this spot at plus 11, I think is a gift. The other part of this for Western Michigan, this is a team that identity-wise last season was a big play waiting to happen. They averaged 3 plays through the air of 30 yards or more last year. That number is all the way down to 1, which ranks them 80th nationally. So they're still effective. They're still efficient. They're moving the ball. Caleb Ellaby has been great, but it's just not the same quick strike offense. And when you cross over that key number of 10, now we're realistically talking about that backdoor cover, and Western Michigan, to feel comfortable, you want them to be up by 3 scores. I don't see the quick score capability that the Broncos once had. And then on top of it, I think the passing game could end up actually being better for Ball State. The weather's supposed to be perfect in Kalamazoo. It's a little bit warm, no wind. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals here, plus 11 to get this G5 high 5 started.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I am high on Western Michigan, but like you said, it's still a big enough spread that they can win and get, like you said, that back door is going to be open. So yeah, I don't hate it. All right, for my first pick, I know we teased it earlier, but I'm going with UTSA plus 3.5 in that game against Western Kentucky that you liked. For everything you said, I do think both teams are going to run up and down the field. I love Bailey Zappi. He's awesome. He's going to get his. There's no doubt about that. But when UTSA has the ball, Western Kentucky is just 114th in rushing success on defense. They've allowed 216 yards per game on the ground this season. Enter Sincere McCormick. As we always talk about, he's one of the best backs in the entire country, not just the group of 5. He's 11th in the nation with 541 yards per game, 541 yards total this year, 6 touchdowns. 293 of those yards have come after contact. The Hilltoppers defense ranks 86th in the country in tackling. Western Kentucky has just completely given up running the ball. They're 108th in rushing success. And even when they try to, UTSA ranks 3rd in the nation. They're allowing just 2.3 yards per carry. They have been awesome against the run. So I do think, Bailey Zapp is going to throw it around the yard. He's going to get his. He'll probably put up 400 yards. But the thing you didn't even mention when you talked about the UTSA being able to move the ball, their offense has taken a huge step forward behind quarterback Frank Harris, which we talked about that early in the year. I'm pretty sure we both have UTSA's futures. I bet them to win the conference. And our big question was, would Frank Harris take a step forward? He has. They're 11th in the country in passing success rate. Frank Harris is completing 69% of his passes for 225 yards per game, 7.8 per attempt, all career highs. He has 6 touchdowns through the air, and he continues to be able to use his legs out of the pocket. He has 2 great weapons in Sakari Franklin, Joshua Cephas. Both of them are averaging over 75 yards per game. So, it's not like this UTSA offense is dink and dunk either. They're putting up 35 points per game. They're 6th in the country in finishing drives. And what I love the most about this Roadrunners team, who we have backed multiple times, they do all the little things right. They don't beat themselves. They are fewest penalties in the conference. They're averaging less than 4 flags per game. That's huge. They have the 2nd best turnover margin in the conference. That's huge. And they have the best special teams. They have Hunter, I don't know how to say his last name, Duplessis and Lucas Dean, their kicker and punter, who were both all conference first team last year. So I love everything about this Roadrunners team. I know you do too, but of course you also love your Hilltoppers. So this is a little bit of a split household for you probably, but I'm going with the Roadrunners plus 3.5. Meet. I think they get it done. I think they run it all over them. And I think Frank Harris has really taken a step forward, and that shows today or on Saturday.
As soon as you mentioned UTSA and I knew you were going with the pick, it quickly became one of those Leonardo DiCaprio memes where I was snapping and pointing at you at the television. Yes, absolutely. I agree. Western Kentucky is going to have to get creative on special teams, maybe an onside kick. They have no chance of slowing down this offense. It's got to be turnovers. It's got to be flipping field position. It's got to be some trick plays. But even as you go through the anemic state of the Western Kentucky offense in terms of running the football, it makes me even more bullish on my over, because they're not even going to try to run the ball. This is not going to be a situation where you're going to have some 3 and outs because they're trying to establish the run, quote unquote. They're just going to hand the game plan to Zappi and say, keep us in it for 4 quarters. The last one for my addition to the round robin this week is a team that's red hot. And I was actually quite surprised when this number hit the board. East Carolina is catching 11.5 at Central Florida. This isn't 2017. This isn't 2018. Dylan Gabriel, there was a bit of a snafu with the Score app. So when I looked last week for the first drive for Central Florida, it had credited Gabriel with a touchdown pass. I was like, is he playing with a broken clavicle? This guy is just a mutt now. So they made a mistake. And I quickly hopped on Twitter and saw that he's not walking through that door, so to speak, for the Knights. And because of that, I just don't see them as this world beater in the American that East Carolina can't go toe to toe with. Like, first of all, East Carolina has been a team that can get hot offensively, as they have been in their last three. They're scoring close to 42 points per game. Keaton Mitchell is coming out of nowhere. This freshman is just killing it. Almost 10 yards per carry, 160 yards per game on the ground in the last three, which has taken a lot of pressure off Holden Ahlers, who's a guy who can win you the game and lose you the game just as easily in his career. But now he's got a Robin to his Batman in the backfield. And because of that, their one key weakness can now be masked a little bit. And it's always been allowing defensive havoc. Their offensive line has not been good over the years, and Ahlers extends plays, throws across his body, turns the ball over. UCF is not a team that's creating any havoc. They're 123rd in tackles for loss. They're dead even in turnover margin, 72nd in passes defended. This is not the defense to take advantage of East Carolina. And the fact that they scored 42 on Marshall, I know, is a big comeback in the second half, and particularly in the fourth quarter, but that's a much better defense. So I've already seen it. This isn't a hypothetical conversation. Can ECU put it all together? Ahlers 7 touchdowns in his last 3 games against just 2 turnovers. The last part that makes me just a little bit shaky on this, and honestly, I may have gone all the way for the money line upset if it wasn't for this one stat, but East Carolina continually is relying on the big play. They cannot convert on third down. They're 118th in the country, third down conversions. UCF is not great, but I believe they're in the 60s for third down defense. So if they can get off the field, I think that neutralizes a bit of the hot streak that the Pirates are playing with right now. The last piece, when they do get an opportunity to score, they're perfect in the red zone. 100% of their drives in the red zone have ended in points. So I just don't understand this. My power rankings call for this to be a 7-point number, and it's 11.5. So that's, crossing over in 2 positive ways over key numbers. So I'll go ahead and take the 11.5 and try to reel back my ambition and not dial up the huge money line upset. What do you think about the Pirates playing at the bounce house?
See, I actually don't even hate the money line thing, because ECU, the way, like you said, the way they seem to play, especially Ahlers, is ECU's either going to win this game or lose by 30. Like there's
Yeah.
They don't have an in between, because either Ahlers is either going to throw 5 touchdowns or he's going to throw 4 picks, and I don't really see anything in between. But I definitely I love the Pirates, so I actually thought about the over in this game, because I do think UCF seemed to move the ball fairly well with the backup quarterback. And I do kind of believe in you with the Ahlers being able to throw it. And Mitchell's been running the ball great. So I definitely would lean ECU. I actually think there's a pretty good chance they win the game, but I also agree with the over. I think it's going to be a shootout. For my next play, I'm going to one that, again, I'm going back to the well with the team I know you love too. I'm going to Minor Nation. I'm taking UTEP. They're, I think, -1.5 right now against Southern Miss. UTEP is off to a 4-1 start. They've already hit their preseason win total. Gavin Hartson's having a much better second season than he did last year. Miners are 24th in passing success rate in the country, and Southern Miss is 80th at defending the pass. I don't know that I was wrong on a team coming into the year when I was going through all the teams than I was on Southern Miss. I actually expected them to be a lot better this year. I bet them week 1 against South Alabama. I was really high on them bringing in Will Hall, the OC from Tulane last year. We saw how good Tulane's offense has been, and I mean, it seems to not dropped off, but they were great there. Southern Miss has been horrible this year. They're 113th in rushing success, 118th in line yards. Frank Gore Jr. has not gotten anything going for them. And this UTEP defense ranks 28th in rushing success this year. They're going to totally take away Frank Gore, who honestly has been taking away himself most of the year anyway. And Southern Miss started the year with Trey Lowe at quarterback. He got hurt week 2. Then went to backup Ty Keys. He got hurt last week. So now they're on their 3rd string quarterback. They're starting freshman Jake Lang. It's going to be his first college start. He came in last week and threw 3 interceptions. And UTEP's only laying 1.5 against Southern Miss team, who honestly wasn't good with their first or second string quarterback, and now all of a sudden their third string is supposed to be better. UTEP's 22nd at creating havoc on defense. They're going to live in that backfield. They're going to force the freshman into mistakes, which he already proved last week he will make. So I love UTEP in this spot. This line is way too low.
This seems like you're another classic Bradley Dale Pavito fanboy. It's just everybody from the local deli here in Pennsylvania to, the streets of New York City for the Action Network headquarters. They're all talking about Pavito, the work that he's doing there. So I'm with you. This UTEP team continues to be undervalued, and it makes sense because most people have never watched a UTEP football game. And the fact that they're usually playing on Stadium or ESPN Ocho, like it's keeping them under wraps. And I am more than happy to continue cashing on them. In this spot in particular, I think it just comes down to the health of their quarterback. As I mentioned, collegefantasyfootballupdate.com. They do a great job with the injuries with beat reporters, and they've kept it organized. They said that he practiced on Monday, practiced on Tuesday, so he looks good. Deion Hankins came back, and he was the battering ram down the stretch last week in their win against Old Dominion, scoring the game-winning touchdown. There's no reason not to keep our picks swinging here, literally and figuratively on the Miners. So I'm all about it. Let's close it out with one more winner, and hopefully we can string together a 5-0 week as we did in week 1. What's your last one for the G5 High Five?
Well, our last picks have all been fun games. We're all throwing up, the teams that everyone knows we love. I'm getting dirty with this one. I'm getting in the mud. Gross. Give me Akron plus 14.5.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
Bowling Green should not be laying over 2 touchdowns to a high school team. And I get it. They've looked way better. The Bowling Green's defense might be the most improved unit in the country. But at the end of the day, they're still horrible at offense. They're 129th in rushing success on offense and 101st in passing success on offense. Anyone who watched Bowling Green, which, I hope most people have not, but if you're listening to this podcast, you've probably watched Bowling Green. I don't think Matt McDonald's ever thrown a football before. Either that or he's throwing it with the wrong hand, because he does not look like he's thrown a football before. He's graded as the 144th quarterback in Pro Football Focus. He stinks. So, Akron's offense isn't anything to write home about. And Tion Dollard is suspended after he got arrested on the offseason. That's a huge loss because he ran it down Bowling Green's throat last year. But Akron's still 83rd in rushing success and 98th in passing success. And yeah, that's not good by any stretch, but it's a lot better than Bowling Green, who they're catching 14.5 points from. And, Akron has looked much different since DJ Irons took over at quarterback. He started the year as the backup quarterback. He came in against Auburn and went 13 for 13 for 129 yards and a touchdown against Auburn. He got his first start week 3 against Bryant. He went 19 for 23, 296 yards, 3 passing touchdowns. He added 136 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So far this year, he's got 8 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging 165 per game through the air, 50 per game on the ground. He's really doing it all. He's got, great chemistry with Mumfield, who has a touchdown now in 4 straight games. So this Akron offense is better than Bowling Green's. It has been all year. And, while Bowling Green's defense is definitely a lot better, is it laying 14.5 points better? These are 2 of the worst teams in the country. I don't think any of these teams should be giving 14.5 to anybody. So let's go. Zip it up, baby. Plus 14.5.
I know it's spooky season, so maybe the ghost of Brian Van Gorder is going to come out and start dialing up plays for the Falcons, and all of a sudden Akron's going to move the football. You make some good points on Irons. Absolutely. Like when you dig into the numbers, he's someone that gives them at least a chance offensively to string together 5 or 6 positive plays in a row. Really, I kind of looked at this game and I thought to myself, is under like too easy as a play? Because having watched the entirety of Kent State Bowling Green, which by the way, the Mac crew calling back a touchdown at the end of the first half, and then our boy Andrew Glass, who saved us against Texas A&M in the opener, missing a field goal. The wheels fell off that best bet for me real quick once they took 7 points and then 3 points off the board. Having watched all of that, Bowling Green is a nuisance defensively, and they absolutely capped any explosive plays. The Golden Flashes were not able to hit the big one. And because of that, I'm looking at this 46 number, and I don't know. To me, it has the feel of like an AFC North game from like 2004. Like this is a Derek Anderson Browns led team, and there's going to be some difficulty. Maybe Kelly Holcomb comes in at halftime and also struggles to move the football. I would just say break glass in case of emergency for our listeners. If you can't get your finger to actually touch the smart screen and dial in that WynnBet pick on Akron, then maybe just go with the under. All right, go ahead.
We talked about how improved the defense is, and I agree with that. But at the same time, okay, Akron was laying 2.5 in this game last year and beat them 31-3. We all know Brian Van Gorder is one of the worst coaches in the country. How many points is Brian Van Gorder worth that they're going to go from a 31-3 loss to now win by 15 or more? That's a big swing. And you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity to throw in a little bonus pick for you.
All right,
let's
please.
Get really
I have so much to say about Brian Van Gorder. I just want to get all my facts straight, but please go ahead. This is a good opportunity to stall.
We're getting even more in the mud with it. This is a bonus pick for you. Game of the centuries this weekend. And you, as two degenerates, we're not going to not play this game. Granted, I don't even know if this qualifies as Group 5 because they're both independent, as they deserve to be. Give me UConn -3 at UMass. Let's go Huskies. Everyone has to bet this game. These are the two worst teams in the country. They both should be regulated to, Division 3, but they're not. And I'm going with Huskies. Yes, maybe a little bit because I'm from Connecticut and I want to play this game and I'm rooting for my hometown. So, maybe don't tail it in that sense, but this game's a coin flip. So you got to pick someone. I'm going with UConn, and they have actually looked way better with their new quarterback. They brought in a freshman who low key, I'm not going to sit here and, debate this game because you shouldn't, who cares what the numbers say, but they have looked better under their new quarterback. So give me the Huskies -3 in the game of the week.
I couldn't agree more on that one. And most people see it, and the jokes have just been flying on Twitter about how this is one of the worst games to ever be scheduled, and people making pilgrimages to go to the game, get in for $3.50. But UConn is, if I had to make a comparison, it's just like the worst food you could get on like a rest stop, gas station situation, but it's still food. Like UMass is like dog food. And I mean this because our producer had to eat dog food with Darren Ravel last year. So he knows the difference between bad human food and dog food. And that is what UMass is. They shouldn't be at the FBS level. They make UConn and New Mexico State look like, the creme de la creme of these independent ranks. So I'm with you. I think UConn is an easy play there. Don't overthink it. And finally, you brought up Brian Van Gorder. How much could the absence of Brian Van Gorder be worth? And I'll make a complicated comparison here because this is garbage time here for the podcast. But the movie Back to the Future was originally cast with Eric Stoltz, and the movie was not working. And if you want to hear the entire backstory on Netflix, the movies that made us Back to the Future, they brought in Michael J. Fox to play Barney McFly, turn the whole thing around. Whoever the Bowling Green defensive coordinator is, maybe he could be our hero of the week next week if they play a good one and keep the number under. He's the Marty McFly, the Michael J. Fox version in this one. So that's how I'm going to wrap up this conversation on the Group of 5 deep dive. I think we did a great job really testing the depths of G5 land and mining out some potential value. Hopefully all of our picks hit. We're going to give you a quick rundown on all of the picks before we get out of here to make it easy for you to fill up your card on Saturday.
I do just want to throw in one more bonus bet just because we don't record till Wednesday, so we won't get to it. Getting out of the mud. Early next week, we have not only a beautiful early week game, but one of the best games in the Group of 5, that we've had so far. App State at Louisiana. I know we didn't cash our Southern Alabama underdog parlay, but they should have won that game. They were a couple missed extra points away from winning it. And I think everything we handicapped about Louisiana was spot on. This number's not out yet, so, obviously wait and see what the number comes out, but I'm definitely playing App State in the spot. I think they're a much better team. I think, Louisiana is pretty well respected, so I do think the number will be somewhat short. And I just think App State's a much better team. We both said we don't really believe in Louisiana, so this is a great spot to fade them here. So I'm going to go ahead and lay App State on Tuesday night to give that out as a little bonus pick.
You're going to want to go ahead and just search Twitter for the running back injuries for App State. If Cam Peoples is good to go, they have some other depth behind him that potentially could be coming back from injury. That's really important because they love to just beat on teams, and usually the dam breaks in the fourth quarter. So to have him at full strength, I think would be a huge feather in the cap for the Nears in that spot. And that's it for the Group of Five deep dive here at the Big Bets on Campus podcast presented by WynnBet. Reminder that you can hear directly from Colin and Stuckey Thursday nights into Friday mornings, covering the entire slate, no stone left unturned. So please check them out, as well as our other content, which includes Sources with Brett McMurphy that comes earlier in the week. For Mike Iannello, I'm Mike Calabrese. This has been the Group of Five deep dive. Thanks for listening.